you. I think you may be on mute.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just did a whole intro on mute. So rewind, and here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another amazing episode of The Fifth. I am your host, Dr. Sandy. Hope everyone has had a blessed day. I hope that you have done all the things that you wanted to do. I hope all the great things have come to you. And I'm glad that you took the time to join us this evening. So, as I was saying when I was on mute, I have an amazing guest with me tonight, Dr. Calynn Lawrence. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing well. Happy to be here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so glad you took the time. We're going to have a super important conversation tonight. We are talking about healing the whole person, a conversation on holistic mental health. And how important is it for us to understand the wholeness of ourselves and what it takes to heal the whole person? So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the people that are watching now or later on, and then jump right in and tell us about, our topic for today. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, my name is Calynn, professionally known as Dr. Calynn Lawrence. I am the founder of the Holistic Healing Source for Marginalized Society, and we are an online virtual resource center that offers a plethora of complementary options from advocacy content to educational content, professional trainings, reusable presentations that you could, use or mix and match to your own liking, as well as a free online virtual library of self-help ebooks that cater to a variety of different needs. So we do a lot of holistic recovery focused content for our audience, and most of it is available for free. So I am very happy to talk about why the need for whole person recovery is there, and why we need to merge a little bit of the traditional scientific healing with the complementary, alternative, spiritual, naturopathic healing in order to get the best results for people of marginalized groups.
I love that. I love that. And that is so important that we understand how to merge the two together, because some people are educated on just the holistic side and some people are educated on just the medical side, and they don't understand. A lot of people don't understand how, your spirituality, your mental, your physical, all of that just combines to just create a safe space for a person. Melinda Buring, thank you for joining the fifth tonight. And I'm sorry Calynn is breaking up. She's actually very clear on my end. Am I clear to you, Calynn, on your end?
Yes.
Yes. Calynn is clear to me and I'm clear to her. So I'm sorry that she's breaking up for you. Yeah. So I hope that I don't know, maybe something on your end, because we're both okay on this end. So I hope it comes through for you. And as we go through, I'll let Calynn tell me, and I'll put her information in the comments. And she can also go to our YouTube and put her information as there well. So if you're interested in reaching out to her, her information will be on YouTube, and I will also log it on in here. Thank you, Queen J. She said she's clear. All right, so I want to jump right into this conversation, and I'm going to ask you to do two different things for me, and from your own, because this is what you do. This is what you deal with every single day. I want you to define for people that are watching that may not understand what it means to heal the whole person first, and then I'd like you to also define for people what holistic mental health actually means.
Awesome. So whole person, sorry, whole person recovery, or healing the whole person, encompasses mind, body, and spirit. So that basically means that you are not only focusing on the mental and emotional processes of things, you're not only focused on the physical processes of things, and you're not only focused on the faith based part of things, you're focused on all three of those things combined. And that looks different for every different person. The same way we all have different bodies, we all have different minds and experiences, we all have different faith backgrounds and spiritual beliefs. So that looks different for every person, but those different components of our well-being exist for everyone. So
Right.
being able to, reach all of those aspects of yourself for optimal well-being, it's really beneficial in ways that a lot of people don't recognize. Then in terms of holistic mental health is along those same lines, but that more so refers to the treatment modalities and the regimen that you're putting together. So holistic mental health care is tailoring the regimen to target all of those areas. So for some people, that might include talk therapy one on one. For some people, that might include therapeutic support groups or a combination of both. If you're like me, that might include, self care and a thorough self care routine. That might include going to church. That might include, doing some yoga, doing some meditation. Like it depends on, the person and what their needs are and their interests
Right.
are. But that holistic mental health care routine, you need all of those things together to make sure that you're going to be functioning at your
Right.
best.
Right. Right. And when someone is struggling with part of that entity, your mind, your body, your spirit, how do you encourage them to try to marriage or marry those three things or merge them together?
My personal recommendation is working with a therapist or within a therapeutic support group that supports those principles, because you have a lot of therapists and support groups that are just purely medical or purely scientific, and they don't operate outside of those bounds, and that's fine. But I think that if you are interested in that whole person recovery, having a provider, whether that be the private therapist or the therapeutic support group, who believe in that same type of modality, it's key, because they can help you out with putting together that regimen. They can help you with connecting you to different people who may specialize in different aspects. They will support you in the actual sessions and not just kind of side eye like, yeah, that's all good and dandy, but that's pseudoscience, or that's
Right.
like mumbo jumbo. Get providers who are on the same wave as you.
Right, right. And that's important too, because I mean, that's probably a big thing when you say get providers who are on the same wavelength as you, that wants the best for you, because that may be one of the many things that deter people from wanting to get therapy or wanting to, speak to a professional. As myself, I'm a life coach, or people not even want to speak to life coaches because they just are afraid of not someone not being on the same page that they're on. Right. So as you do your line of work, and I know you come across so many people, right? How do how do you go about like referring like resources? What is it when somebody walks in and you're having a conversation with them? What are you looking for before you decide these are the resources that would best fit them? What are you looking for in those conversations?
Well, for me, honestly, I like to get a feel for, what are their interests, what are their goals, and what is their background. So, for example, someone who is dealing with, mild depression or mild anxiety, they probably don't need the same level of intensity as someone like me who has major depressive disorder, or someone who has generalized anxiety disorder or OCD, especially if it's high impact. They probably don't need that same level of intensity in terms of therapy and support groups and things like that. So that's just an example. Or if on the flip side, I know that they have a long-standing history with chronic mental health conditions and things like that, then I'm going to recommend they do something that's a little bit more rigorous and involved. And then when it comes to like the complementary aspects of like self-care, what do you enjoy doing? Do you enjoy going to the spa? Do you enjoy doing art? Do you enjoy performing? Do you enjoy somatic experiences and moving your body physically, like all of that's going to inform what practices I recommend you do to make sure
Right.
that you're, blowing off your steam, you're thinking, you're resetting every week to make sure that your wellness is where it needs to be. Because so many people don't realize that even having those hobbies and those routines every week, that feeds into our overall wellness as well. It's
Right.
all a part of self-care, and people don't realize how important that is. You got
Right.
to take time for you.
Yes, absolutely. That is true. I tell people like when I'm stressed out, I love to work out, right? I really do like to go in the gym. It's just my way to just, just be mind, body, and spirit. I feel like I'm doing it all when I'm in the gym, right? Other people love to read, other people love to go walk on the beach. Whatever it may be for you, it is so important to have self-care, like so important. And it doesn't have to be anything major, like you've been saying. It could be something that you just simply enjoy, and I'm just talking from another opposite side. I just feel from my perspective, right, if you just do something that you love to enjoy, that doesn't even use a whole lot of energy, for me that can also very well be self-care.
Yes, exactly. Because self care is really any activity that's beneficial to you and is allowing you to blow off steam or build purpose and feel better throughout the week or the day or whenever you're doing it. Like people think self care has to be like a mani pedi or a spa day or, getting my hair done.
Right.
It could be those things if you want,
Right.
but that's not for everybody. Like somebody like me who doesn't go to the spa or go to a hair salon and all of that, like that wouldn't, be something for me. But
Yeah.
things like journaling, traveling, blue therapy, swimming in the ocean, I really love, things like that for me
Mhm.
fill those voids.
Right. And I love water. So it's actually, I've never heard anybody say blue therapy being in the ocean. I absolutely love that. I don't even have to get in the water. I can just sit by the water and that's therapy for me. Excuse me. So there are so many people that I think and I can see and just in their daily lives that are struggling with what would look like depression, to the naked eye. They're unmotivated. They don't like to get out of the house. They're working every day, but it's monotonous. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing extra that's filling any bit of their space. And also it's like trying to speak to those people from the outside is like they're not optimistic about a lot of
Right.
things. So I find that it is so very hard to get through to people like that. For someone like myself, or anybody else that has a family member, and they feel like their family member may be going through depression, or they're just not motivated outside of just the same routine of work every day. What do those people do? Now we're talking about the people that we think may have depression, but there's got to be a way that you approach it without yourself being an annoyance. You understand what I'm saying? Because you can probably make it worse more than help it. So how would you advise those people to address their family member or friend, whoever it may be?
I personally have experience with this. People close to me um, needing to get professional intervention, but not having the capacity or desire to do it of their own accord and needing that little push. And there have been times when I needed that in the past as well. I would say if you're a concerned loved one, family member, friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, I would say trying to come at it from a perspective of I am concerned about you. I'm not trying to judge you. I want you to know that I'm saying this because I care. And also coming to them with the resources in hand. So if it's somebody who already doesn't think that they need help or doesn't want the help, they're not going to take it upon themselves just because you said, oh, you should get help to do the legwork for that. So come to
Right.
them, make it as easy as possible, have those free resources or low cost resources already typed up, printed out, have it in a folder for them, present it to them so they have as minimal work to do as possible in terms of
Right.
starting that process. And then also A strategy that has been beneficial for me as well, is introducing people to those spaces in a non in a low stakes setting. So as opposed to just coming straight out of the gate, like you need to go to therapy, you need,
Yeah.
how about bringing them to some mental health related events or some recovery related events, or some events that are just wellness themed in general, and
Yeah.
seeing if that'll slowly break down those barriers that they have, because they have their guard up, seeing if
Yeah.
just exposing them to these spaces will bring the guard down a little bit, because a
Yeah.
lot of the time it will, and a lot of the time they're operating from a place of ignorance and stigma. So if they've never been really around these spaces to begin with, of course they're going to be scared and they're not going to be
Right.
interested.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, it's always, if somebody, it's like anything that you feel that is not going right with you and people keep bringing it to your attention, you're constantly going to feel like everybody's looking at me, or everybody knows, or everybody sees this or sees that. And then it just becomes like you just get in your head because you don't know what people actually see, So I've kind of seen a lot of that when I work with like I used to teach. I was a teacher. I'm out of the classroom now, but I would see kids with emotional disabilities, and I would see how upset they would get, not because of the facts, but because of what they thought other people thought about them, right? And that is,
Yes.
I know firsthand, that is a hard place to be from their perspective. But from my perspective, it was also a hard place to be to convince them otherwise,
Yes. And
So
a lot of the time too, it's more than just that individual. It's systemic, one, at a population level, but then it's also like within their families and the people close to them. So it's
yeah,
not just educating the individual, especially like you say with kids, it's getting the whole family to come to that realization, and equipping them with the proper knowledge.
yeah, absolutely. And I like that you say the whole family, because if I am educating you about a topic, or about a subject matter, and everybody else around you has no idea what we're talking about, it's hard to feel supported. And it's hard to have valuable conversations because you're the only person that's speaking the language for success, while other people may just be speaking the language, kind of like putting a band aid on what's going on. So I like that you talk about the whole family. Definitely. So what are some misconceptions that people have about mental health?
I would definitely say a couple of my main things are, people think the only people who need to go to therapy are people who are in acute crisis or who have chronic mental
Mm,
health conditions. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. Therapy can benefit just about any person on earth, regardless of their personal profile. Now, you are going to have different types of therapy that work for different types of people or that are preferred for different types of people. But therapy of some kind, whether that's in a support group setting or that's one on one, or even in a family setting, if you're working with like an LMFT, it can benefit any person. And I
yeah,
get so tired of people thinking like it's some kind of badge of honor that they don't go to therapy. Like, oh, I don't need
right,
that. I'm strong. I'm really smart and I'm responsible. I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. Like, because therapy is so much more than just receiving guidance.
of
Therapy is about
course.
unpacking, it's about goal setting, it's about holding you accountable to being your best self, it's about giving you an unbiased outside perspective in terms of navigating conflict and difficult decisions. It's so many things. It's giving you healthy coping mechanisms when you're going through hard times. Like, it's so much more than just, oh, that person's the boss of you. So I
Right,
really don't like that.
right, right, right. And as we've gone through the years, I mean, I know at least a couple years, mental health has been such a big topic in, just the sports world and just with just celebrities, right? Everybody has started to come down and start to understand like mental health is a big, big deal. Like it can really destroy a person's life, destroy a person's career, destroy a person's family. So do you feel like the stigma of mental health, or not so much the stigma, do you feel like the stigma has decreased and people are now starting to understand the importance of it? Do you feel like it's the same? Is it 50-50? How do you feel about that?
I think that thankfully we have, generally speaking, made some progress in terms of dismantling stigma and raising awareness for the importance of mental health. Organizations like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and Mental Health America, they're two of the leaders in that realm for doing those things. But there's plenty of organizations like the Holistic Healing Source, that contribute to that work as well. So I do think that there's been progress if you compare like just mental health literacy and mental health acceptance to like statistics from the 90s on back. So we have made some slow but steady progress, but we've got a long way to go. And I think that social media and the internet have been a double-edged sword in that way, because while they have made it so accessible to spread educational content and resources and all of that, they also, the internet and social media, provide the opportunity for people who are operating in their ignorance and stigma to have
Yeah.
a megaphone and reach whoever they want online, discouraging people from getting the help they need. So it's a little bit of a give and take.
Right, right, absolutely. So it's just that, there is so much work to be done, because the work is being done to build it up, but I feel like there's equally just as much work being done to bring it down. You don't need this, you don't need therapy, you don't need someone to talk to, you don't need to seek out help, because like you said, you can turn to drugs, you can turn to sex, you can turn to whatever it is, a whole different avenue of making yourself feel better, for lack of words, like you said, because of the ignorance of it. Right. So
Yes.
what percentage of people, not the percentage, but what category of people do you see um the most mental health issues in? Females or males, teenagers, women, men? What capacity of people do you see mental health affecting the most?
Well, I think mental health affects everybody in different ways, right? So, in terms of suicide rates, men have by far the highest suicide completion rates, but women attempt suicide at much higher rates than men. It's just that
Mm,
men tend to use more lethal means of force when they attempt, so
mhm.
they tend to be more successful in completing the suicide. But
Right.
then if you look at, actual diagnoses, there are more women diagnosed with chronic mental health conditions than men, but that's also because women seek out help at multiple times the rate of men. So,
Yeah.
there's that duality there. And then even when you're looking at young people nowadays have higher rates of unfortunately, suicide attempts and things like that, and mental health diagnoses, than if you compared them to 20, 30 years ago. But that's also because now that people are a lot more aware of mental health, and services are more accessible, more
Right.
young people are being assessed and treated in the first place to where it's on people's radar, versus back in the
Yeah.
90s or the 80s or the 70s or whatever. So many people weren't being realized, because like it just wasn't as widespread. So I'd say it's a mixed bag, and it just kind of affects people differently. But I will say one thing, coming as a woman of color, as a Black woman, one thing that really breaks my heart is that people of color tend to be among the most averse to mental
Yeah.
health treatment.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we have any less diagnoses than other populations, but we're so avoidant as a group collectively. We don't want to get diagnosed, we don't want to get assessed, we don't want the help because of that stigma around it. So that just breaks my heart.
Yeah, I'm glad you went into that, because I was going to ask you how much do you think or see that culture, just affects people seeking guidance when it comes to mental health, and you've already said it, and I can, understand it too. Like, so many of the students we see that are getting services a lot of times are students of color, and it's just easily diagnosed, and then there's just so many parents that are unwilling, like you said, to get help for the kids, because they're just, like you said, averse to getting their kids. I'm not a person about they need medicine all the time, but sometimes it's needed, and like you said, I see a lot of people of color not wanting to go that route for whatever, I don't know if it has to do with just culturally. I don't know if it has to do with back in the days of just wanting to just get everything from the earth. I don't know how far back this mindset has come from, and it's just that back then that's all they had. Now we have the knowledge and the education to know that there is something that can help us. So what is the one thing that you wish people would just understand about healing the whole person?
I think I think one thing that in general I wish people would take more seriously is that recovery looks different for every person and it's not always extreme, right? So for example, I personally get uh, I can't irrationally angry when I see parents, and this is coming as somebody who doesn't have any children, but I'm a former pediatric behavioral therapist, and on top of that, like I've worked in pre-K through 12 education and things like
Right.
that. So I'm very passionate about the youth. I cannot stand when I parents either in my personal life or professionally who are like, oh, my child doesn't need any help. They don't need any services because they're doing good in school. And it's like mental and behavioral health is way deeper than just them achieving academically. In fact, a lot of people with chronic mental health diagnoses and neurodevelopmental diagnoses tend to have higher IQs and do good
Yeah. Yeah.
academically because of that. So that mentality of like, oh, well, as long as they seem all right on from a far distance, like they don't need any help. And I'm like, you don't know what that child is going through outside of just doing well in school. And then you see them like doing this very like overly reactive, stern parenting and things like that. And you're looking like, yeah, well, you're getting so flustered and impatient and yelling at the kid, let alone if you're trying to whoop the kid and spank the kid and do all of that. How
Right.
about you get them tested to see if they might be on the spectrum, especially if you've already been recommended this by some of their teachers or their pediatrician or whoever? How about you get them tested to see if they need some help that they're not getting, and stop all of this? Oh, well, they're doing good in school and they can talk fine, so they don't need any
Right. Right.
assistance.
Right.
And I see that so much because they're like, oh, I don't want the labels, they'll be okay. I cannot take it. So I wish people took whole person recovery more seriously, and that they had the wisdom to just take advantage of the care that they have access to. Because to me, it's a slap in the face to our ancestors who didn't have access to care,
Right.
to have the access to care and still turn it down.
Right, right. And that is true. That is true. To have access to care, right? And just saying, I'm not going to use it when it's given to you, that is disheartening to see when someone is just, and it doesn't even have to do with just even having to receive something, not even wanting to receive the education. That in itself is something that is very, very annoying to see. And I can say that.
Yes.
And then it's just hard because some people just don't want to be educated. They just don't want it.
They would rather
Yeah.
be ignorant. And this is a also caveat to that. And this is coming from somebody who was a pastoral counselor by trade. I was in full-time ministry for 4 years before, in my early adulthood. This is coming from somebody who's very much pro, spirituality and having a strong faith base, whatever that looks like for you. But
Right.
I cannot stand when people think they can just pray everything away. Faith without works is dead. The faith is
Mhm.
the praying. The works is getting the help, getting the
Right.
diagnoses, going to therapy, doing whatever it is that you need to do or your child needs to do to be well.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that.
Right. Right. So when you talk about the mind, body, and spirit, okay, and like we said, we're talking about people that don't want to get help, is not accepting what is given to them. But there have to be some people that are also successful, and you see success stories, right? What gives you hope for working with people with mental health? What gives you hope that what you're doing is making a change?
For me, It's seeing how many people, once they finally got the services they needed, whether it was because they were holding themselves back and they had access and they just didn't take it, or whether they didn't have access and they finally gained access, seeing how people's lives tangibly improve because
Yeah.
they don't recognize how, therapy, support groups, medication if needed, building those healthy coping mechanisms, working towards those goals with a non-biased accountability partner. They don't recognize how life-changing it really can be. And
Right.
seeing the difference, like I have seen so many countless people be like, wow, like my life is so much better off now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a blessing to see. And it's not
Yeah.
so much look at what I've done, it's look at the work that you've done. Look
Yes.
at you believing in yourself. Look at you seeing what works. Like, yes, I've been saying it, but now you're receiving it. And look at you being healthy. Look at you being happy. So that's
Yes.
awesome. Yeah. And then Queen Thomas said, you ask, you seek, and you knock. Ask, seek, and knock. Right. And that's what it's about. You ask for it, you have to seek it out for yourself, and you have to go out and accept these opportunities when they come your way. So you ask, seek, and knock. So it's been such a good conversation, and I'm not gonna push it through because, like I said when I spoke to you, I'm gonna have you come back because we need to continue having this conversation about mental health. But before we go, what do you say to the person out there that is struggling in silence?
Ooh.
Hmm.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I would say to that person, one, you can't pour from an empty cup. Usually,
Hmm.
people who are struggling in silence, it is because they're too busy taking care of everybody else that they don't want somebody worried about them. So, one, you
I love
can't pour from
that.
that empty cup. Take care of yourself, as much as you need. Two, don't feel like, don't let the fear of judgment keep you from being healthy, one, and being your
Hmm.
best self, two, because a lot of the time they don't want to seek the help because they feel they might be judged or they might feel guilty about it. But don't let that, keep you from being your best self, because at the end of the day, people are going to judge you anyway. If you're running on empty fumes and you're not sleeping well and you're forgetting stuff and you're showing up late all the time because you're constantly running by, people are going to judge you for that. Or if you're
Yeah.
snapping at people and you're, like really irritable and, not well rested or not, doing your self care, people are going to judge you for that. So if they're going to judge you anyway, you might as well go ahead, take care of you, do what you need to do to make sure you're happy and healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have one last question when you're talking about pouring from an empty cup. When you are there and you're giving these services and you are pouring so much of yourself to other people, because as you said, you suffer with depression yourself. So you're suffering yourself and you're also pouring out to people. How do you keep yourself feeling whole? How does that journey look?
It's really hard working in a human services capacity, having major depressive disorder, having, battles with substance use, specifically alcoholism, having a lot of trauma and, some physical ailments, and then just balancing a lot personally and professionally. It does get very, very difficult. But for me, what keeps me going is being able to tangibly track the impact of my hard work. And that's like, again, going back to that whole person holistically. What is the impact of me going to one-on-one therapy every other week religiously? What is the impact of me making sure I'm showing up to those therapeutic support groups so that they can, help support me and I can help support them, and I get that feeling of community with people who understand me? What
Yeah.
is the benefit of me staying rigid about my self-care routine? What is the benefit of me being serious about my faith routine and making sure that I'm sowing up seeds of, spirituality and all of those things? tracking those things through journaling, and even just like looking back like at social media posts, because I post a lot on social media and I'm often very raw and authentic. Sometimes I'm sobbing, crying, sometimes I'm jumping, happy, laughing. I show it all. So
Yeah.
being able to see even those memories popping up, like, ooh, I was in shambles a year or two ago crying on my
Mm,
story, or ooh, this was something I did that I'm really proud of. Even just seeing that,
yeah.
being able to have those reminders and have that tracking of the progress I've made, it keeps
Yes.
me going.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Why don't you tell people how can they find you on social media?
Well, you can find me as a person at Calynn M. Lawrence. So Calynn, the letter M as in Mary, and then Lawrence. Or you can find the Holistic Healing Source. So at Holistic Healing Source on Facebook and Instagram, or go to our website if you want to take advantage of the content and all of the freebies we offer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate the work that you're doing. I very much appreciate it as a special education teacher, as a person working with students and parents, families in special education. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And it doesn't just stop at special education. It is just the work of the people. Like a lot
Yes.
of people need to understand what it means to be whole. And we're not saying what it means to be perfect, what it means to be on the journey to wholeness. And like I said, I want to have you come back on here so we can dive deeper
Ooh,
into the conversations of just going through those steps of getting to wholeness. I would like us to go through and just break down, set some steps and break it down one at a time. Some things that you can do to get past step one, step two, however many steps you want to talk about, for us to really put it out there and, continue to help people. I know it's not mental health month, but we live a mental health life. Whether you feel great in the morning, there is still work that everyone has to do, so it doesn't stop.
it never stops. Your wellness routine should continue on as long as you are living on. And
Yeah.
I would love to come back. I love, talking to you. We have so much in common, and
Yes.
our passion for people, like it's so clear that we share that. And I
Yes,
would
it's
love
a
to
drive.
talk again for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any closing words that you would like to leave the people with?
Yes, please, 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 I am begging you, visit holistichealingsource.org. Leverage all of those resources that we have on there. They're free, they're virtual, access them from anywhere. There's no contact or payment info needed. Please take advantage of them, because we pour so much time, money, labor into those, because we want to make as much of a difference as we can. So please go ahead and check those out. It would mean the
Abs-
world to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. And as I was saying, if you're here tonight, thank you for being here. Please like and share this podcast. So many people need it. Share the stream. Send people to the podcast, send people to the healing source. There is so many people out there like ourselves that want to pour into people and see their lives be enriched one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time. So please don't just watch this and keep it to yourself, but share it. If you watch it months from now, share it. If you watch it years from now, share it, and send people. I mean, like she said, it's free. The information is free. Why not go get it? So yeah, so thank you so much again for being here, Dr. Lawrence. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Sandy, and I can't wait to be back.
Absolutely. And for everybody out there, thank you for watching. And as I always end my podcast, I say that my future is forward, your future is forward, our whole future is forward. God bless everybody and have a good night. Take care.